Welcome to BS Session 131. Yes, the infamous wheelbarrow is coming back. With a vengeance?
But some of these bullets, as you saw, have an incendiary device on the tip of it, which is a heat-seeking device.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
Welcome to your weekly dose of BS, the Realistically Speaking podcast.
I have no idea if it's true or not, but I just would like to start the rumor.
Is the wheelbarrow back?
No comment.
That's a yes. That's 100% a yes. I'm so glad that you brought it back. I'm not even competing in it. I didn't compete last year, and I can't wait for the saltiness.
Let's just say it's back in unexpected ways.
Okay.
I hope you built some sort of contraption and like hung it from ropes. And
it's suspended from the sky by chains and then bungee cords.
That sounds amazing.
It's got some spring to it.
Yeah. No. It's if people like janky props, this will not be the match for them. So yeah.
Well, tough. Oh, Carly can't resist all the wheelbarrows.
You know what's funny about her is that literally after the match, so many people kind of complained about that wheelbarrow. Although a lot of people clean that stage. People complain about the wheelbarrow. So literally, like after the match, we were down in Montana, and there's this place called Murdoch's, and it's like a farm supply store and like a ranch supply shop. And we'd go down to Murdoch's or like Home Depot or Lowe's, and every time she'd see a wheelbarrow, she'd take a picture of it and goes, "I think we should get this one for it." So, yeah.
That's
next
great.
time. But it is back, and not in the way that people think. So it'll make an appearance. Let's put it that way.
Okay, good.
Sweet.
Good.
So for those who don't already know, we're talking with Vanja Kurtalica of Apex Optics and the Apex Rocky Mountain Challenge. But before we continue this conversation, we should earn our pay for a few bills. Maybe what I'll do is let you all know that our show tonight is brought to you by Callsign 66. Canada's best rifle training. Welcome to the Brotherhood. Book a course now at callsign66.ca and follow them on Instagram at callsign66 and on Facebook at C/S66. Stay tuned. They have their 4-day combined fundamentals course coming up August 1st through 4th.
Ribstone Gunsmithing, craftsmanship done right. Contact Oscar at ribstonegunsmithing.ca and breathe life back into any firearm. Oscar also has a new book out titled Rust Bluing in the 21st Century. Find it on Amazon.
And we said it previously, but we can say it again. Congratulations to him and his lovely new bride. They finally tied the knot a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Congrats.
And we are also brought to you by Mark Scopes Canada. The Dion Optical Design line of rifle scopes has a scope for all your hunting and shooting needs. Find Doug and Niza at markscopes.ca.
And probably no surprise to anybody, Apex Optics. When you buy Apex, precision comes standard. Check out all the fine competition rifle scopes, red dots, and binos and accessories at apexoptics.co. And just a quick note, Apex is tariff-proof. Canadian and international orders ship direct from the Calgary warehouse, and American orders ship from the great state of Texas. No tariffs, no hassle. The Apex Pro Series Match is the topic, and I think that Mike intended to finish writing that, but he did not. So Apex Pro Series Match is the topic of today's show. He just wrote in there. And that's how we do things.
And if you need a rifle for that match, check out EM Precision Rifles in Vegreville, Alberta.
Oh, he's tying it
Canada's finest precision rifles. Find Shane and Steve on Facebook, Instagram, and on their website at emprifles.ca.
And if you want to stay energized for the Apex Rocky Mountain Challenge, you might want to try some bolt action coffee in the morning. Bringing specialty coffee to the precision shooting world, order coffee and merchandise at boltactioncoffee.com.
I like when Mike's doing his radio voice. He says, "Caffey."
Caffey.
Coffee.
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 We are also brought to you by Odell Engineering. Pick up a Canuck shotgun, Bergara rifle, and Apex ammunition. Not to be confused with Apex optics. One you shoot, one you look through when you shoot. Anyway, get all of them from your local distributor and tell them Phil sent you. Look them up on Instagram, Facebook, and on their website, odellengineeringltd.com. Just a quick note, they did have to start a new Facebook page about 3 weeks ago, so make sure you head over and give them a follow. I don't know if the new one is still up or not. I don't think it is. I think it got cratered by Facebook for violations, as dumb as that sounds. But stay tuned for some upcoming content on the Canuck Wrangler from us. I think that's an old video because we do have some Canuck Wrangler content, and we'll have some Trail Bouse content coming along with other lever action content coming your way in the next month or month and a half, I would probably guess.
I'm sure you'll be able to get some awesome lever action content at the Apex Rocky Mountain Challenge too.
I'm going to have to
sound intuitive. Sorry, but yeah.
Yeah, I'll bring this to the Apex Challenge because we'll talk about it later. But you have a Wrangler or a Trail Boss?
Wrangler.
Okay. Okay. I know this looks like a Wrangler because it's got the full length buttstock on it, but that's actually a Trail Boss. That's the little mare's leg. I wheeled and dealed and got the full length buttstock put on it, but it's the little shorty barrel on it. I love this thing. It's amazing.
Excellent. Now, last but not least, Sterling Arms International, home of the R18 Mark III and the R9. Contact them at sterlingarms.com and look out for the R9 arriving to a store near you. They are being shipped out to dealers on a regular basis now, so now it's time to buy one for your wife and kids, and a second one for yourself.
I just got an update from JR late last week, and they're bringing 200 to 300 rifles in like per week. They're in over 20 retailers now across the country, and I think that like they're just hitting that threshold where they're able to steadily bring them into the country, and you're going to actually see them in stores if you aren't already, instead of calling stores and saying, yeah, we've got a waiting list a mile wide and our next 3 orders are already pre-sold. So that is good news. You'll actually be able to walk into most stores and be able to pick one up and play with one before you buy. And by the way, if you do play with one at a store, you will walk home with it. It is like I'm not just trying to rub JR's rhubarb here, but it is they caught lightning in a bottle with that little gun.
It's awesome. Yeah, I may or may not have been there today while they were assembling things, and there's a shit ton of rifles. So
I know he's sending me videos. It's just like he's just endless panning along tables with like lowers waiting to be assembled, and yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and they do test fire all of them. I can vouch for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
Thoroughly, I might say.
Thoroughly.
With magazines of proper capacity.
Yeah,
it's called standard capacity, Derek.
Yes.
Standard capacity.
Are these actual Girl Guide cookies? Carly's saying you got a fresh batch of Girl Guide cookies.
Our girls rated the Girl Guide cookies today at the shop. So yeah.
That's hilarious.
Are they the mint ones or the chocolate vanilla ones?
Both.
Ooh.
The chocolate and vanilla ones. Yeah.
Girl Guide cookies are something special, except for them when they sell the maple. Those things can burn in hell, and the person who invented them can be hit in the face with a rusty hatchet. But the chocolate, the vanilla, and the mint are some of the best cookies I've ever had in my life, consistently year over year.
You put the vanilla chocolate ones in the freezer. The best.
Oh, really? You eat them frozen, or you just keep them fresh?
No, you eat them frozen.
Really? So what's the advantage to eating them frozen other than breaking your teeth?
It's a different texture. You get different flavors. Yeah.
That's interesting.
You use different parts of your taste buds.
You just reminded me, I haven't had any of my students. Usually I've got female students and moms every year that come in for us to buy Girl Guide cookies. They haven't come in yet, and I'm a little bit disappointed.
Well, Mike was saying today at the shop when I was over there picking, because they were storing a bunch of props for us. And so I went to go pick it up with the cargo trailer, and Mike was saying that they just came around. So
Okay,
he's
so
like, I
well,
couldn't say no. I'm like, of course not. It's girls.
and I'm not going to be at the gym for the next month, so they'll probably come around while I'm not here. I'm going to have
Probably
to
next
leave instructions with everybody to get me
Yes.
several boxes.
Yeah.
I remember one year we agreed to sell them for a parent, and she brought us 2 cases of them, of the chocolate mint, and I ended up buying most of them.
2 cases. Yes, please. I'll take them all.
Yeah, they lasted me the rest of the year. It was great.
You just got to ration it, yeah.
Yeah. By the way, if anybody would like any other Girl Guide updates on cookie sales or anything else, just make sure you stay tuned to the Ballistically Speaking podcast.
Yeah.
This went sideways real quick.
I will throw out there, I buy them by the case.
Oh, that's such a good idea. The only
Connoisseurs.
problem is you don't get a discount, especially if you're going to freeze them, I guess. Hey, because like they can last as long as you want.
Just throw them in the deep freeze.
Okay,
They
I
last
got.
longer because you forget about it.
We got two more things to mention, everybody, and then we're going to talk about the ARMC. I always forget the acronym here. Anyway, hey, we have a draw going on right now for a fully custom 338 Lapua built by EM Precision Rifles. It features a Curtis Custom Action, an IBI 30-inch stupid heavy barrel. That's the official name. It's like, what is it? Is it a 3/4 inch or is it a full inch diameter? I can't remember. It might
It's
even be
over
more than
an
an
inch.
inch. Yeah.
1.25.
1 point what?
1.1. I said 1.25 usually.
1.25. Yeah, it's a chunky monkey, and it's fitted with a custom EM precision muzzle brake and a Trigger Tech Diamond Go switch, all laid into a full custom laminated stock by Rifles Refined. Each $20 entry can be sent by e-transfer to info@bspodcast.ca. Make sure to include your email address and your phone number in the comments of the e-transfer so that we know how to get a hold of you once we draw. If you are like John Bergen, who accidentally did not do that last week, then make sure you send us an email afterwards so that we can make sure that we get your name in the draw. Once we have 500 entries, we will draw for the rifle, and somebody's going to go home with the better part of 10 grand, isn't it?
It's
So
a few.
in that like $5,000 to $7,000 range or something like that.
It's a few pesos at least.
Yeah, it's
And
worth
I
a
can't
few
win it,
pesos.
so everybody's odds of winning just went up.
Yeah, exactly.
And the best part is, I think it was built before tariff pricing, so it's already appreciated in value just while we've been running this.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm going to say anyway. Yeah. Warning: my advice may not be true or valuable or
Legal.
even remotely
Yeah.
should be listened to.
Quantitatively good.
Yeah.
Factual.
Lastly, work in the YouTube grind pays less than a solar farm in a blizzard. You may or may not know that already. If you want to support the channel directly, head on over to storydknives.com or cdnprecision.com if you're out east and pick up one of our Gardner knives. We think this is one of the best survival type everyday fixed blade knives available for a very reasonable cost. We are proud of this little guy. So please go have a look at a great knife. We're confident it'll be on your side for a lifetime. Mike was about to write something into that. He wrote my name and then he deleted it. And
I was typing in the wrong spot on my monitor.
I have to admit, I just bought another Storied knife for myself, so I have 2 of them. I'm going to keep this one in my camper trailer. So I'm buying them. You should too.
Mm-hmm.
You got a couple. Yeah.
We're also donating 2 of them to the prize table for at the Apex Rocky Mountain Challenge again. So
Yes.
if you want to win one, well, come to the Rocky Mountain Challenge.
Sign
Come
up.
shoot the match.
Yeah, shoot the match.
Absolutely. We got it. Yeah, and thank you for that. Thank you for the thank you guys for the sponsorship of the match, and thank you for putting a couple things on the prize table as well. We've got a huge. I guess I'll take this as an opportunity and maybe a natural segue to thank all the sponsors this year. We have, I think, over $85,000 in value on the prize table this year.
Mm-hmm.
So
how much?
85,000.
Wow.
And we're still getting some stuff trickling in the last couple of weeks here. So, yeah, some companies were in right away, and other ones have taken a while to say, yeah, we committed to it, but then they haven't sent stuff yet. So it's coming in. Like today I was getting like a series of texts from Madeline from our team, who's kind of in charge of all the match sponsorship stuff. So she's been like telling us like all the stuff that's coming in, sending us tracking numbers and all that. So it's all going up to the warehouse. So we got to go pick it up there for some point. But it's going to be a pretty stacked surprise table. It's going to be awesome. And yeah, tons of companies. Obviously, a lot of the companies that are sponsors of this show as well. Ian Precision Rifles, I'll mention them right off the bat as well. But JR with Sterling Arms, his new shotgun culture, sponsoring the match in a huge way, providing us not just with the big kind of event trailer that we used last year as well. So he's getting us to use that again, but he's coming through big time with bringing out some of his military machinery for us to use as props. So last year we had the what he calls Trucky Truck, which is kind of the big troop carrier truck that he's got, which is actually going to be in the Stampede Parade this year, FYI.
Oh, that's cool.
Nice. Yeah, on Friday. And then it's coming down to our match after the Stampede Parade. So we're going to use that as a prop again this year with a couple of small modifications. And then we're also going to be using a little mini tank as well, which he likes to nickname Buttercup. But that's like a nice, I think it's like a British tank from early World War II that he imported a long time ago. But he likes to drive it around Calgary, which is pretty cool. So that's going to be at a rodeo event, I think 2 weeks before our match, and then it's going to make its way down to us. And then we also have the big kind of tank. It's like a tank carrier truck that we're going to use that has a really cool hydraulic platform that tilts in different angles and that kind of stuff. So we're going to have a really innovative way of using that truck and doing something pretty cool with it as a stage prop. So yeah, big shout out to JR and his entire team and letting us do that. And they've been coordinating all that stuff with us. That was part of our meeting. And then on top of that, one thing that Sterling Arms is doing as well is they're sponsoring a side stage for us. Mm-hmm. So one of the side stages is going to be with us, Sterling R9, and they have these cool resettable targets with us, and we're going to be running a stage timer. And Mike from Sterling or one of their other team members is going to be running the side stage. And I think it's going to be $20 to buy in, and then whoever cleans the stage the fastest is going to win something. So I think it's going to be 50% of the pot.
Mm.
That's super cool.
Yeah. So that's going to be a good one. And then obviously,
great way to try before you buy too.
100%.
Out there.
So, yeah, everything's going to be included in for that $20, your ammo, the use of the gun and the targets and all that stuff. So, so it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you want to come down on the Friday, so all of our side stages are happening on the Friday along with our train update. So if you come in a little bit early on the Friday, I think we start our side stages like at 1:00. So if you come sign in, then you can try out all the side stages. You can go set your rifle in. You can go mess around. Plus, for an additional fee, if you'd like, we have what we're calling a train update this year. So what that means is you're going to have an opportunity to sample 5 of the stages as far as the props go. So you're not going to be shooting match steel. You're not going to have the match book yet, but you can at least go to 5 of these designated stages where you can go and try out a couple things. And this is especially useful for, seasoned competitors, but also brand new shooters who maybe aren't 100% comfortable yet, or this is their first or second match and they're not quite sure how to shoot positionally or how I'm going to do it off this prop or off this position or whatever that may be. So maybe how do I get more stable? So it'll be an opportunity to train up a little bit. And no, they are not going to be 5 field.
I'm sorry.
So yeah. So
Can we change her name on the side scroller here to Shit Disturber?
Mm-hmm. Wheelbarrow enthusiast or something. Yeah. That sounds wrong.
For those listening on audio, Carly just said that the train up day will consist of 5 wheelbarrow stages.
That's right.
I think the one-wheeled wonder would be that'd be a good one.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on the Friday. We got, after everything's wrapped up, as far as when everybody's done shooting, is you get a little wristband just like last year, where you're done for the day with your firearms. Everything's been put away in their truck and your case and whatever else and put away. And then you can enjoy a little bit of the beer garden. We'll have regular beer and non-alcoholic and some other kind of drinks there as well. So you can just kind of hang out and socialize a little bit before everybody's done for the Friday and everybody get some rest before the match starts on Saturday morning. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So we're doing a couple of different things on the Friday, trying to get more community buy-in, a little bit more socializing and more kind of just fun events to just make it a little bit more, not a carnival, but you want to have an experience, right? You want it to be fun. And some of the most fun that I've had at matches has been at side stages or where it's like a 1 mile challenge with your 6'5" Creedmoor or whatever. Whoever hits it gets half the pot or whatever. So, you know, we just figured we'd do something else. And then there's a second side stage apart from the Sterling one. So you get to shoot the R9, which is a fully semi-automatic 9mm carbine.
God damn.
Yeah.
Does it dispense with 30 bullets in half a second?
You know it. And incendiary as well.
Oh, lovely.
Which the rancher is a huge fan of incendiary projectiles. So,
as most are.
That's right. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So basically, on the second side, we have Odell Engineering Canuck shotguns or Canuck guns coming through in a huge way. So they're actually flying Anthony out from their team, who's going to be running that side stage and also helping out throughout the match. Was a huge shout out for that. But they're basically putting a lever action 22 Wrangler into we basically have a dueling tree, a rimfire dueling tree set up. And it's kind of a similar setup where you throw in $20 to try, and you can try as many times as you want to beat your buddy's score. Clean that dueling tree and as fast as you can. So that's also going to be a time stage and see who wins. And then the winner of that stage will get the rifle.
Nice.
That's cool. That's going to be the most fun ever.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It's going to be a blast. So, yeah.
The shoot itself is the 2 days after that, Saturday, Sunday. That's
right. The shoot itself is the Saturday, Sunday. So we are going to have a zero board open most of the day on Friday as soon as check-in starts at that location. And then there's a second match location that I'll talk about in a second that we're going to have a secondary zero board as well for during the match as well, because we'll be running multiple locations at the same time.
Multiple locations at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So this is the big news, is that there's a new venue.
That's right.
This match. Let's talk about that there, Vanya.
Yeah, for sure. So this year, we basically got in contact with our previous landowner, and he was all happy to host us. But there was a small complication in one of his kind of permitting applications that he was putting through with the county, and he didn't want to upset his neighbors by hosting another match. And he has a fairly grumpy neighbor that was a little bit curmudgeon last year. Even though I took him on the side-by-side and I basically showed him around for like an hour on the Saturday of the match, and he was super cool about it. But he didn't want to risk his development permit. So he's like, let me hook you up with a buddy of mine who has a spot 10 minutes west of Millerville. So if you're familiar with kind of southern Alberta, where we were last year was just north of Black Diamond or Diamond Valley, whatever the two towns are now that were combined.
Mm-hmm.
So we were 5 minutes north of town, which is really convenient for like accommodations and camping and all that kind of stuff and facilities close by. But it was a little bit close to town. We did have a lot of looky-loo traffic and all that kind of stuff. And as you guys remember from last year, it was a beggars can't be choosers kind of situation last year. So we were able to get that last year, and we were very thankful for it first and foremost. So a huge shout out to Ben and his whole family for hosting us last year. And he felt so bad this year. He's like, let me hook you up with a buddy of mine. He's got this amazing property just west of me. So it's about 10 minutes west of where we were last year, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
And we went and met with him, and he was all happy to do it. Honestly, I'm going to talk about this because this scene is stuck in my mind when Carly and I arrived at their ranch for the first time. First of all, like their ranch is situated literally at the end of the highway. It's like 549, I think, and just west of Millerville. And then you turn south on this dirt road for like a kilometer. But we rolled into their shop yard, and they were expecting us. They knew we were going to be there, but they were out riding horses because they were moving cattle all that day, and it was an unbelievable. Like a beautiful day, sunny, clear skies, all the smoke rolled out, and you could see the mountains and everything. And they literally come through this valley, all 6 of them on horseback, like just up in the valley and over top. And because they saw us pull up, and it was like a scene out of
Yellowstone.
Like, it was unbelievable. Like I literally told Luke, like the rancher, I'm like, that was like some straight up Alberta stuff right there. It was amazing.
Yeah,
so,
everything was in slow motion. There's an eagle flying overhead.
Yeah, no, but literally Carly and I looked at each other. This is freaking epic. Like literally, it was just 6 of them, just like full trot, coming right at us. It was awesome. So anyway, like a wonderful ranching family in Southwest Alberta here, and right at like we're right on the cusp of the Kananaskis boundary. So if you can imagine kind of like rolling foothills, like with mountains as a backdrop, that's the scene of the Rocky Mountain Challenge this year. So it looks unbelievable. And the way that he kind of allowed us to use the land was pretty incredible. He's like, all my cattle are going to be out. I think they moved the last ones out this weekend or this past week. And he's like, everything's going to be gone. So use whatever you want. So there's this one particular area where it's going to be the main match location. And it's in this beautiful little meadow that's surrounded by trees. And you're kind of shooting into the hillsides. And there's nice clear lanes and all sorts of cool little patches of trees and areas. So we're going to be able to really be creative with the kind of the target placement. But then on top of that, he showed us this other area. And as soon as we saw that, I'm like, I have to use this as well. So we could easily hold the one match down in the meadow. And that would have been like probably the simplest, easiest thing to do. But the moment Carly and I, we hiked the entire thing with him and his family. And we're like, yeah, I think we have to do this up here as well, because this is pretty sweet. So, so basically it's one of those scenarios where we're up along a ridge line and there's a clear path. You could run a truck through it up the top of the ridge line. It's all clear cut. But then off the one side of the ridge line, looking into the valley and into the meadow, and then to the other side of it, which is fully treed hills and another kind of side of a mountain, you're like, man, this would be perfect for an NRL Hunter match. Was my first thought. It's perfectly set up, and there's these like lanes through trees and all these different kinds of things, and then there's natural props galore, because there's like deadfall and stumps and all sorts of other things that you can use, and like some perfect prone positions. So I was like, we're really going to have to set up, maybe 8 stages up here. And out of those 8, we might have to have one where we have some sort of a prop. Everything else we can use natural. So it's going to be an interesting mix of like down in the valley or in the meadow in the first location. It's going to be a lot of man-made props. And then in the upper section, which we call the woodlands, is going to be just a lot of a lot of natural terrain props. So yeah, we're pretty excited about that, and kind of give 2 different feels and looks to the match, and kind of combine 2 different styles.
That is awesome. So
yeah,
it's gonna be interesting dynamic then.
I will have named it the Enchanted Forest by the end of the match.
Sure, let's do it. I'm in.
Why wait? Just name it that now.
Okay. Well,
I will go with that.
It's going to happen organically, but if we're going to do it now, why not?
Well, you know what part makes it kind of the Enchanted Forest, and I'll share this story, is the first time we actually, like, once Luke and his family kind of left us, he's like, just go roam around and find out what you want, like where you want to place stuff. And so Carly and I are just hiking along this ridge line, and we went all the way to the end, and we started coming back towards where our truck was. It's only about a kilometer. And I almost stepped on a baby deer. It was just like a little fawn and curled up and at the top of this ridge in the grass.
Yeah.
And I got a cool video of it, and I'm just like, it was just dead still. And then it would blink once in a while. So of course that's what they do, right? To when their mom's away, they stay protected that way. But it was super cool. So definitely a bit of a magical feeling, which leads me to my next point, which is why I wanted to get that 44 Magnum lever action to have with me while setting up for the match.
Mm-hmm.
I reached out to our friends at Odell, and I'm like, hey, listen, all my stuff has been prohibited pretty much that I could have with me. So I got nothing left. I'm like, unless I want to carry a sidearm, which I, sure, on private land, whatever. If you get caught, you get caught. But they kind of look sideways. But I'm like, I don't want to quite push it. I don't want this match to get canceled. So I'm
rather not be in jail.
I don't want to die. So
the
reason why I say that is because the rancher told me, the Fish and Wildlife in Alberta told him that that whole section of the land that he's on has the most, like the highest proportion of predation from grizzly bears, cougars, and wolves in the entire province.
Really?
Yeah.
Neat.
He loses a huge amount of cattle every year.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah. I told him, I said, if you need guys to take care of that, I've got a bunch of dudes I can call that are really good shots.
No shit, right?
Yes.
Well, what he needs to do is what they do on Yellowstone. He's got to go out on an overnight trip, and it always seemed to solve things for Kevin Costner.
Clearly, that's the answer.
Except for that one time that his buddy died in his sleep under the tree.
That was a pretty good scene, though, right?
It was a pretty good scene. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, you don't really want that in real life.
No, so I was thinking like when I'm up on the opposing ridge line because I want to set up some stuff on the other hill as far as targets. I'm like, that's straight bush, like that's Kananaskis country boundary. So I'm like, I grew up in Kananaskis, so I know it's like I've had my run-ins with plenty of grizzlies, but I'm just like, I'd prefer to have something in the side by side than not. So yeah,
I wouldn't blame you. Yeah.
So Phil hooked me up.
That's pretty cool.
Doug's got one just in case it sounds like as well.
There you go. Mare's leg.
Yeah.
And 44 Magnum, there's no better cartridge in the world.
No, I thought about like 30-30 or something like that. I'm like, I don't know, but I'm like 44 mag. I'm like, that'll take care of pretty much anything in the short distance. So I'm like,
blow your head clean off.
Yeah. But yeah, so we're pretty excited about the setup. We're excited about that. We're gonna see what we see, and yeah, I think as far as wildlife goes, it's pretty varied out there. Apparently, they have a roaming band of wolves around there, and lots of coyotes. And
I love that. There's something about being so. I think this is this fall. I think will be the 4th year in a row that there's been a pack of 9 wolves on the property where I hunt. And there is nothing cooler than sitting in the middle of a treat area with snow all around you, the squirrels, everything else, the ravens that are always there, by yourself because your buddy's more than a kilometer down. Yeah. And you know that there are 9 wolves on this approximately 800-900 acres worth, and they're probably watching you right now.
Yeah, there's an interesting feeling, I think, about being in nature and hunting that, I think us as humans feel like a lot of times we're the top dog, and I think there's something very humbling when you're out there and all you have is a rifle, and you're like, this isn't going to do shit against 10 of them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
it's even more fun when you don't have a rifle.
Exactly, right?
Yes.
So,
well, I've said it before and I'll say it again, in terms of self-defense, you've got really 2 crowds and very few people belong to both of these crowds. And the first crowd is shooters, people who believe that the gun will keep me safe no matter what. And then you've got the hand-to-hand, you call them martial artists, they usually are. And they believe that, things often get up close and personal. I got to be able to handle myself. And that's whether I know how to handle myself hand to hand and I'm going to carry a knife or a hatchet or whatever. But we're talking hand to hand combat. But both camps are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be
both.
Yeah, it needs to be a holistic approach. And I'll tell you, I don't feel safe sitting in the middle of nowhere knowing that there are wolves around and have been for the last several years. I don't at all. That's kind of the exhilaration of it, that literally there's a deer out there who doesn't know that I'm watching it. And I don't see the wolves watching me. There's just something about the circle of life of that, Yeah. So I'm comfortable in the not being safe, but I know that I'm not safe. But I've got a bolt action gun with me, and I've got a knife that's about this long, sitting in a holster, and then I've got my my storied knife as a tertiary backup, and I feel just a little bit better knowing that I might be able to get one shot off on a wolf with the bolt gun, but after that, all I've got is a foot-long pig sticker.
So you're missing one critical piece of equipment. Is the
a handgun?
Well, there's that. But I was gonna turn it into a little bit of a joke. The old gun show taser.
No.
Stun flashlight.
Yeah. Just my luck, I'd drop it in the snow, pick it up, all the snow would melt, and I'd tase myself.
Yes. I do not recommend those.
and for the record, because I know I'm going to get comments on this, no, I don't actually believe that I could fight off a pack of 9 wolves with a foot-long pig sticker. But I guarantee I'm going to get the first one and probably the second one. Whereas most people won't even get the first one.
Yeah. And then it might give pause to the other 7, right?
And that if that's what happened, then you know what? I saved my own life because I got some crossover in the self-defense skills. But a handgun would be much better.
Mm-hmm.
Glock 20 and 10 mil.
Yep.
Yeah. I would even take 9. I would take any handgun with a standard capacity. I take my M&P with a standard capacity magazine in 9 mil. That would be fine for wolves.
Yeah. Some sort of plus P projectile, like plus P ammo, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you. Like, I'm not taking frivolous shots at wolves with a handgun. You know, they'd be getting pretty close to me, I think. Because I'm not going to miss. Even with a standard cap magazine, you don't want to have to reload.
Yep. No, for sure. And I mean, and so the ranchers telling us, like, if you see them out there, then feel free to do with them as you wish. So, you know,
Cool.
we might be on a wolf hunt. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I think aren't wolves protected?
No.
Alberta? No. Open season.
Oh, I'm pretty sure they are in Saskatchewan.
There's some exemptions to that. So on private property, like in that example, a rancher's property, they are
With
allowed to
landowner
be dealt
permission?
with.
Right. Well,
Yes.
but
You
they have
could-
to
you
be able
couldn't
to
just-
demonstrate that the wolves are predatory, don't they?
No,
No.
they can control them on their land as required, but you can't just go out crown land hunting wolves just for the fun of it.
Oh, that's
That's not a
interesting.
thing. Yeah,
That's Alberta you're talking about, right?
that's Alberta. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should probably look up the regs because I hate just like listening to people say things and then repeating it. But what I've been told in Saskatchewan is that they're protected and you have to be able to demonstrate a purpose for trying to hunt or trap them, even on private property.
What's kind of funny about that is he was telling me that he loses about 35 heads of cattle every year.
That's insane. Like, that's a massive amount.
Yeah, and so Fish and Wildlife, like the fish cops, go there all the time. So because he has to call them in every time he has a kill, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he gets very frustrated because a lot of the times it's grizzlies, and other times it might be wolves. But when it's grizzlies, because we have the I wouldn't call it an open season, but we have that new program in Alberta. We can sign up to be part of the grizzly response team. So basically, as a registered hunter, you can go out and hunt grizzlies that have been deemed to be a nuisance or a danger, right? So Fish and Wildlife determines that, and then you go and they kind of like put you out there, go, here's where it was seen last. And what he said was, he's like, I wish they would just pair them with the landowner and say, listen, look, this guy's going to take you around. He's like, I know where they all are. I know where they move. I live on this land. I work on this land 24/7. So he's like, I can tell you exactly where they're going to be. But then it's kind of funny because he's like, he had all these ideas. I was like, I don't know. I'd probably just shut up if it was me.
Yes.
I mean, that's a significant amount of money, right?
Elk, I think they have that too. The elk task force, where if there's too many elk on a herd, farmer calls and come blast a few elk for him.
Yeah. He said that actually they used to give them 2 tags per year per quarter section or per section. I couldn't remember what it was to manage the herd. He's like, but you're not managing anything with 2 tags a year. So
No.
it's like, yeah, he said that the numbers are getting out of hand. The cows basically destroy his pastures and all of his hay fields and hay stacks and everything. Right. So yeah, I'm like, again, we know people, so.
What a fine line to walk, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the same thing that I remember talking to the guys when I was hunting with Sean down in Medicine Hat for elk, and we'd go down every rancher's, like every kind of rancher's door and knock and ask for permission if they were around. And he's like, yeah, if you see him, take down as many as you can. He's like, well, we got 2 tags between the 2 of us, so he's like, I don't care, just bury them in the snow. He's like, they're ruining everything. So there are definitely a lot of attitudes out there in the farming and ranching community that the elk are becoming a problem for sure, and they trample fence and all that kind of stuff. So he's like, you just create like 2 weeks of work out of every elk herd as they move through because they destroy so much fence. Yeah, it takes you so long to fix it and destroy feed and all that stuff. So yeah, that's an interesting kind of game management discussion that's probably best for another day. But yeah, it's gonna be cool out there for sure. The scenery's epic, lots of wildlife to be seen. I'm sure we'll see our fair share of deer, elk, and bear, and wolves, and coyotes, and whatever else. So yeah.
Of course, we'll want to see some wildlife, and all the shooting will keep them away. Just
You
because
would
we
think
want to
so.
see something.
You would think so.
All right.
I don't know if you remember last year we had that moose that was in the one patch.
Right.
Yeah.
He was in the aspen patch, and he was sleeping. And I think it wasn't until like an hour into the match there was like ringing steel all around him. He decided to take a walk.
Lumber on over.
Yeah, wake up and scoot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm sure we'll see.
Speaking of managing, what have you learned from last year that you're kind of applying to this year? Because last year you were a first-time match director, so that's quite the achievement, regardless. So what? Now that you got a little bit more experience under your belt, what are some things that you're looking forward to implement in this upcoming match?
Yeah, that's a good question for sure. So we had a lot of conversations after the match with a lot of like really experienced shooters, both on the Canadian side and the American side. A lot of the US guys that came up, and it was an interesting kind of dynamic between the two sets of responses that we got. So it was really interesting. Like from the American side, we got a lot of like really positive energy and a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of like, no, this was great. Like it was right in line with some of the stuff. He's like, if I would change anything, it would be like 1, 2, 3 little things. It was just like maybe on some target engagement. It was like one of the things that one of the top shooters that came up from the States that was former AG Cup winner, Clay Blackadder, told me. He's like, no, everything was great. He's like, the only thing I would change is like your movement description in your course of fire favors a left-handed shooter way more than a right-handed shooter.
Oh,
So he's like, just leave it freestyle. I'm like, the guys can do a left to right or right to left. I'm like, oh, that's a quick, easy change. That's fine. So yeah, so that kind of stuff. And then like really one of the biggest things I think that we're going to be taking into account this year, apart from props, like prop stability, I think was a comment from some people last year, although I would argue that our props were probably more stable than 90% of the matches I've shot in the last year. So I'll take a small issue with that. But primarily about, making sure the targets aren't skylined and have like, we can see splash behind as much as possible. So when we're setting up steel in the next couple of weeks here, we're going to be really mindful of like that. Taking a slightly different approach in setting up targets this year. So last year, because we kind of had a weird compressed schedule because of the last minute kind of losing our land and having to find new land and rewrite the entire course of fire and rearrange all the directions and everything else to fit that land. I had to do it all on Google Earth beforehand. So I didn't have access to the land for very long before we started setting up the match. I think I had access for like a day or two, and that wasn't enough. So in order for me to set up the match and have the matchbook printed, I actually had to send it to the printer as we were still pounding steel in. So every single piece of steel had to go to the yard of where we had it. And sometimes because of the undulations of the earth and like the ground and how high the prop was on the other side, and it was a little bit lower than I expected, or maybe you weren't going to be able to see the full target and then with the draft, all that kind of stuff. So really, we're taking an entirely different approach. We're going to actually set up the match first and then effectively write the course of fire as we go. So that's a big one. And then, we're going to basically, the distance is going to be whatever we ping it to be back and forth, but I'm not going down like it has to be 397 or 643. It's going to be where we put it, where it's going to be the most visible from the prop, and we're going to have the best kind of backdrop for some sort of splash so people can spot their misses. And then there might be some instances where people are not going to we're not going to be in a position to be able to do that, where targets still might be kind of quote unquote skyline in the sense that, it'll be on a bit of a ridge, and then in behind, if you miss to the left or to the right, you're not necessarily going to be able to see until well after, but we're going to make sure that there's a big, small kind of combination where you hit a big target first, and you can spot your impact on plate and then move to a smaller target as a bit of a test after that. So those were really the primary kind of, pieces of feedback that we're incorporating into this year.
No, definitely. And that, again, that's obviously challenges of the various match venues that kind of change. So that's just an aspect of the sport. So
Yeah, for sure. So for us, like really, like the two things that we're taking into this match is one with the new location, we have a lot more flexibility with how we can orient the course of fire and how we can put the stages and where they're facing and kind of where we're shooting into. One, it's way more interesting terrain, way more interesting setup. But on top of that, really the thing is too, I think we're going to have a lot more opportunities to see a lot more splash. So we were actually at the site today, dropping off our cargo trailer that had all the match steel and all the props and everything this year. And the ground, even though it's been raining here for like basically 2 weeks straight, the ground is just pretty dry, surprisingly.
Okay.
So I was like, so that's good. So that's a good sign. And we're supposed to be in the high 20s and low 30s for the match now, I think. So
Again.
So I think we're going to see some good opportunity for people to spot their misses and make some corrections for sure.
Yeah.
Very cool.
With the layout, are we going to get likely some different directions of fire, therefore different likely wind directions as well?
Yes.
Okay.
100%. So on probably 3 stages in the valley there, so in the meadow, we're gonna for sure have probably almost 100-degree swing in kind of potential direction of fire, at least 90. So you're going to be shooting one way off of the one stage and then on basically a 90-degree offset on the other one off of the same prop. So it's going to be interesting, but we're not expecting a ton of wind, although most of the wind that comes in that area comes from the west and the southwest. So it depends on the time of day, but I don't think we're expecting a ton of wind, maybe gusting like 15, 18K at most. So not a huge amount.
Well, it kind of sounds ideal. It's going to be warm. It's not going to be muddy. You're not going to have massive wind.
Yeah, I mean it's still southern Alberta, and forecasts are a bit moot, but that's the way it's trending right now. So we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I will say is that we will encourage everybody to bring lots of bug spray. So the black flies and the horse flies were giant today when I was out there. So I've made the mistake of wearing shorts. So the horse flies are going to be. I don't know if they're going to be out at that point of the year because plus it was really wet, so they like to be out after the rain. But yeah, we're gonna have lots of bug spray. We're gonna have lots of sunscreen on hand as well. We're gonna be feeding everybody throughout the weekend. We have apart from the Friday evening kind of the beer garden, we're gonna have electrolytes provided throughout the entire weekend. And as part of the welcome pack, when people kind of sign in, they're going to get not just a swag pack, but they're going to get a special gift from us as well this year, which is a nice custom thing they're going to get to use all weekend. We're going to have water refill stations all weekend in 6 spots. And then they're going to these big 20 gallons. They're going to be filled with ice and water. And then we're going to be, hitting people up with Gatorade and snacks and stuff throughout the weekend. There's going to be a catered lunch on kind of a bagged lunch on the Saturday that we're going to be giving out to everybody as well and hand them out. And then the Saturday evening, a bit of a social event, which is completely optional, but it's included with your match fee. We're going to be back at the campsite this year. So we kind of figured we'd switch it up. And there's a big green space area that the campsite is actually letting us use. And we have the Spalumbo's food truck coming. So
cool.
Yeah, so Spalumbo's is going to be catering the Saturday evening thing with some. I don't know if everybody has heard of Spalumbo's, but I think most people in Alberta have, at least in Saskatchewan. So big custom Italian sausage / deli shop. They're killer sausages and brats. So yeah, so that's gonna be fun. And then Sunday we have the brisket for the smoked brisket for the award ceremony.
That's good, but the question everybody wants to know: what will the bathroom facilities be like?
Yes, so we are back with the fancy bathroom. Yes,
you are
the legendary
air-conditioned flushing toilets. Hey,
yes, that's right. The air-conditioned flushing toilets with their own generator. Yeah, it'll be on site down at the meadow. We are looking at ways of moving it up for the second part of the day on Sunday as well for the second part of the match. But regardless, it'll be there. And then we also have porta potties all throughout the match site as well. So.
Sweet. Good deal.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty fancy.
Can I derail you for a minute?
Yeah.
Whenever you're on, I always like to talk politics with you.
Oh, no.
Well, we can either start specific or we can start general. Where do you?
No, give it. Yeah, give her.
Well, let's start general. What are your general feelings about how things are going the last, say, 3 months?
Canada or international?
Let's talk Canada first.
Ooh, I don't know. I was kind of after the election. I kind of figured I would let's see what he does, and I'm kind of at the right now. I have reached a conclusion that I was afraid of this, which was going to be just a lot of talk and not enough action. And you know, I think the mistake that most people made at the ballot booth in the spring, the federal election, was that they thought that because he's a serious person, quote unquote, that because he is a banker and an experienced businessman, that he was going to be able to go toe to toe with Donald Trump and negotiate something that was going to be massively in favor for Canada. And I think right now we're seeing that that's not the case. Like something as trivial and stupid as the digital services tax or digital entertainment tax, whatever the hell they call it now.
That really wasn't all that popular when Trudeau brought it in to begin with.
I hated it. I thought it was the dumbest thing ever because
still
how
do.
do you tax information?
Yeah.
That's
Right?
a liberal government for you right there.
Yeah.
Let's tax it.
Tax
Well,
it.
like, you want to make we want people to watch more Canadian content. Like, then make content that doesn't suck.
Yeah, make content worth watching.
Okay, let's analyze that for a second here because Vanya. I know Derek and Mike, you guys are a little bit younger than Van and I. Well, Vanya, you're even
Actually,
younger
can
than
I
me, aren't
interrupt you quickly, Chris?
Go for it.
Just one thing about Canadian media is we will be back broadcasting the Apex Rocky Mountain Challenge live.
We hope.
Both days. Yes.
You got to pay tax for it, though. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes. Yes. Unfortunately, we'll have to pay taxes. But
no, we'll
be back, and we look to be in some improved capacity.
No, we're super excited. We've been talking about this with you guys since the last year's match, and we're super excited to have you guys back and hosting and doing the play-by-play for some of the stages and kind of the thing that you guys did this year. And I can't wait to see what it looks like. So.
Yeah.
Well, we're working on a little bit of a proof of concept that it'll still be a little bit limited, but we're approaching it as a proof of concept, and if it works well, it's something that we're hoping will lead into some pretty big things. So we're not resting on our laurels. Last year it was very quick. It was impromptu. We didn't even have all the equipment we needed. You provided a generator for our Starlink and it was pretty cool but we was just on, cell phones on tripods sort of thing. And we had, the heat was killing the cell phones and, it was a bit of a mess. So we're going to try something a little bit different this year. And, we're really hopeful that it's going to work quite a bit better and hopefully something that we'll just continue to expand on, in the future. But okay.
And also if you're not attending, my chair just dropped. If you're not attending too, also I know this year we'll be running impact scoring as well too. So if you're unfortunately not able to make it, you can still key in on the action via impact scoring and us. So
that's right.
Even if you're not on site, it's going to be a better event for those that are remote. If you're halfway across the world, you can still tune in.
Yeah, and we're hoping to run impact scoring in full live mode as well. So I don't know if you guys are familiar, like a lot of the listeners are familiar with impact scoring, but it's kind of a new scoring system in the last year, 16 months or so. It's come out of the U.S. and it's geared straight towards precision rifle shooting. So NRL 22, NRL Hunter, PRS Rimfire, like regional Pro Series, all that stuff is covered in that. One of the guys that started is actually on our shooting team out of California, and him and his business partner kind of came up with the idea to do this, and we kind of jumped on board just because, one, not just to support them, but also because it was awesome. Because we've watched it in the past before. It was used at the PRS Pro Series finale, and the live scoring feature works works really well. You can actually see shot by shot how people are doing as they're shooting, and it's kind of leaderboard up and down. So we want to use it for that reason, and we're hoping to use it in the full live mode. The problem is we have like intermittent 1 bar of LTE at the match site. So myself and Chris Hoyens, who's on our shooting team, he's a networking professional, and he does this for a living out of Saskatchewan, obviously. And he's like, well, I still got these access points and this. So he's come up with a bit of a solution for us. I think we're going to have like full blown Wi-Fi link to Starlink across the entire firing line. So we're gonna have like
That's kind of essential. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then all the ROs are going to be running their stages with their cell phones. We're not doing tablets anymore, and they're going to have literally on their phone the impact scoring app, and they'll be running shooters right on that. So as they hit, miss, hit, and it's going to be uploading live. So
Super
that's
smart.
pretty cool. And along with your guys' live coverage, I think that makes for a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very cool. So first of all, Derek, damn your eyes for re-railing the show for the first time in history.
Re-railing.
I have a skill. Okay, I have a skill.
Well, develop a new
skill.
one. Okay, I'm derailing again.
Yes.
Vanya, well, you'll remember, the 80s, the 90s, it was rampant. I think the CRTC originally came in under Trudeau Senior, wasn't it? Was when they really were, that was kind of where they really got their power, I think.
That seems like something he would do.
Yeah, if I remember correctly. I might not, but if I do. But especially the 80s and the 90s were what do I call that? A dry bed of Canadian content. Like there was the odd show that people really remember. Like people like to pretend that the original Anne of Green Gables was really good. Danger Bay.
North of 60.
North of 60.
North
Well,
of
North of 60
60
was more
great.
90s. Yeah.
I actually kind of liked North of 60 when I was a kid.
Yeah, I love North of 60.
Oh my God. Okay.
Just to
But-
play devil's
Red, green, too.
advocate
But-
there, north of
What
60.
people say like beachcombers and whatever else.
Beachcombers, but I mean, like they were all like, they weren't great, like compared to what was on American television at the time.
Littlest
You have to admit
Hobo.
that. Littlest Hobo was not. It was filmed in Canada. It was a joint production. It was American Canadian. It was not strictly a Canadian production.
The raccoons.
Anyway, the point being, Kids in the Hall was the only good Canadian television show in the 90s, and what was it called? SCTV
SCTV, I was going to say, yeah.
was the only good Canadian television show in the 80s.
Yep.
And that's not a lot. And by the way, like America had In Living Color, it had Saturday Night Live, like still compare them and
all the TGIF shows, like all the
exactly stuff, right? So
Ash.
in the
Matlock.
Matlock. Guys just naming television shows now. In the early 2000s, the CRTC really relaxed regulations. And not only were more television shows being filmed in Canada, but also Canadian television had to start competing properly. Canadian television wasn't being made because it was required by the CRTC. It was being made because it was actually decent television. And you ended up with a series of shows that were either filmed in Canada as joint productions or were Canadian shows, and they were doing really well. And, shows like Schitt's Creek is probably the epitome of that. But even like Kim's Convenience, it got, what's his name, noticed. I forget his name now, but he played Shang-Chi in Marvel's.
Oh, Simu Liu?
Yeah, Simu Liu. Yeah. So these shows had to compete because they were, they weren't being forced anymore. And then comes along Junior and reinstitutes all these powers with the CRTC, or starts to, and we're apparently going to continue doing all of this. And I think we're in for several more decades of garbage, forced Canadian television.
Well, I guess it begs the question, like, what is the purpose of this? So they're basically saying that, I'm guessing is they're saying that Canadian identity is being overrun by U.S. media, and we're going to become more American, which is apparently ultimately horrendous and bad. And we're going to lose Canadian identity and what it means to be Canadian because of the TV shows that we watch.
which is garbage because
Well, I
some of
mean-
the best Canadian television came in the early 2000s to mid 2000 teens when the CRTC was not over-regulating.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. 100%. And like Mike said, it's like you want us to watch Canadian shows, then make them good.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Protectionism just makes us settle for garbage.
Like
now-
even through all
I
the
mean,
false
does that mean we should all be driving Ladas, because they're domestic, and-
Okay, I would drive
Ladas are
hell.
domestic?
No, I'm just like USSR, I mean.
I gotcha. I see the comparison. What were you saying, Mike?
Well, so on Amazon, there's that Rogue Heroes SAS. That's a BBC production show. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Like the CBC
Well,
could never pull anything close to that.
No. And Uke is mentioning TPB, Letterkenny, Shoresy. Yeah, no one can ever take those away from Canada. Yeah.
That's
No, and those are
exactly
massive
us.
hits in the US too, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I think we reached the apex. If you,
Hey, even
If
Jens
you-
agrees.
yeah, even
Park
Jens,
Boys.
Trailer Park
Yes.
Boys. Yeah,
does Jens laugh ever?
I think that was him laughing. Yeah.
I joke.
It sounds a little bit like he's clearing his throat.
Yeah. He's gonna kill me tomorrow when he comes by.
I think the apex of Canadian television was Letterkenny and Schitt's Creek.
Red Green.
Trailer Park Boys, you got to put him there. Red Green moved to the States after
But-
a period of time.
Did he?
I do believe production was in the States at the later half of production for Red Green Show.
Yeah, but you still had Ontario plates on the possum van.
What about Due
True.
South?
Due South was an example of forced Canadian television in the early 2000s and late 90s.
Well, you remember the CanCon rule, right? Which was it had to be like 30% Canadian
Yeah.
content on the air. I think I remember it for like local Calgary stations like CJ92 and all those guys were like play a certain amount of Canadian rock they had to
That's
play.
right.
When
Yeah.
I was growing up, I'm like, so God, the certain songs we heard over and over again filled that 30%, trying to
yeah.
mix in with the stuff from everywhere else. So like, holy
Mhm.
shit, and that's great. Like they're great songs and we still love them to this day, but it's like, you're just like, is this good or is it kind of forced? You're trying to figure out like, is it a good thing that they're making us listen to this because it's Canadian? Because like, as a Canadian, you go to places like, oh no, that guy's Canadian, or that actor's Canadian, or that singer, or that artist, right? It's like you're gonna know that kind of instinctively, I think, anyway, if you're a fan or if you know anything about the music or the sport or whatever, right? It's I don't think there's a need for the government to mandate how much Canadianness people embrace.
Mhm. And so the point of me bringing this up, the regulations are already coming back in terms of I think it was Bill, was it 61? Was the internet Canadian content rule for YouTubing? Like we today have to have a minimum amount of Canadian content for YouTubing. I'm pretty sure that got passed.
That's insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how
but-
you even regulate that. Like, how do you enforce it?
Well, I think there was supposed to be something that maybe isn't implemented yet about the algorithms, like forcing YouTube to do certain algorithms or something in Canada, or I don't.
Yeah, essentially prioritize Canadian content in an algorithm to an extent would be
Within Canada, yeah, I think
my
that's
understanding.
But I don't
Under
think.
the
I think it's
very
like the
loose
gun
definition
grab.
of
They
what's
passed the
Canadian.
law, but there's no infrastructure in place to enforce it.
And they're not willing to invest the money required for that infrastructure to actually make it happen. Which
Which is a great segue, because they're apparently budgeting. What was it 254 billion or million? Billion. I think it was
No,
billion.
not billion.
million.
It was
Probably.
like 450 million, I think, or something. Last I looked.
Yeah, okay. I'm not good with numbers, but several hundred million then to the gun buyback.
Man, that's not even going to cover Alberta.
Well, you got that right.
It
Yeah.
wouldn't. I wouldn't cover probably a third of the SKSs in the country if they ever ban those. Which
Guys,
is why they never will.
it's not even going to cover the lawsuits that are going to occur between the provinces of Alberta and Saskatchewan when the federal government tries to force them to enforce the gun buybacks.
Yep.
It won't even cover that.
Nope. The only people to win are going to be the lawyers, 100%. Right?
Yeah.
Mm.
So, and the point of me bringing that up, I'm rolling along here. There was
Chris has got a master plan here.
I do. I'm
He's got a
on.
roadmap for this episode.
I'm leading. Well, at least for this derailment.
Mhm.
I'm leading up to a post that I saw in the CCFR page this afternoon. That was apparently a Canadian podcast. I don't actually know either of the folks in the podcast, but they were talking about the what's the word I'm looking here for, the opening, the potential, the missed opportunity for progressive, for the NDPs and the Liberal in this country. And they were talking about the number of people that are typically not conservative or just period not conservative, but they are voting as single issue voters
Mm-hmm.
because they just don't want their guns taken away. They're talking, you know, they were talking about, you know, the how many people in general support the NDP or the Liberals in every other aspect, and
Yeah.
they're voting conservative because they don't want their guns taken away. And I wanted to kind of open that up and analyze that a little bit because I believe politically I'm talking to three conservatives. If I'm not, although Vanya, you're like me more. I think that you're forced to be conservative these days.
Yeah, to a certain degree, I think so. I'll go first, I guess, real quick.
Yeah.
I would say yes. I'm probably closer to you, Chris, in the sense that I'm kind of usually I would say a progressively minded, in the word that progressive used to be defined probably 30 years ago. In the sense that yes, I think the laws should evolve with society and all that kind of stuff. Not everything is necessarily written in stone, apart from "thou shalt not kill" and all those other bad things. But we should progress as a society and move to be more egalitarian, more virtuous, all those kinds of things. I don't believe in a nanny state. I don't believe in the kind of the communistic socialist mindset that we're all responsible for each other's well-being. However, I think that as a society we have certain responsibilities to each other. But I have become more and more libertarian over the years, and what has driven me more towards that side, I think, has been the consistent attack on I hate to use the term gun rights, but because they're not really rights here, but I would say the lawful possession and use of firearms in Canada. I think the more I've thought about it, the more it has given me a lot of pause on some other issues as well. And so I feel like when I started looking at it objectively and logically through the lens of a Canadian gun owner, it really shifted my perspective in a lot of unexpected ways too. So I think that was an interesting thing. So if they would have just left it alone, I would have been one of those down the middle centrist kind of guys.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's definitely turned me more into somebody who is a leave me the hell alone and I'll leave you alone kind of person.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not responsible for anybody else's children but my own, and that's the way I look at it, right? So,
what do you think, Derek?
I'm a Luddite. I'm going to smash agricultural equipment because it is taken away from us farm laborers.
The Luddites were terrorists, right?
The right to manual labor. So
the right to toil away, yeah.
The right to toil in the fields without technology. So yeah, that's my stance. So if you want to join me, just bring a pickaxe, and we're gonna attack. Weaving looms. Single chisel plows. You name it. Just hit me up. Regrettably on technology to join my cause.
That's quite the stance for a guy who relies on technology for a podcast.
No, I'm pretty. I'd say I am definitely understand the function of government. Government should be limited in its functions, should provide a basic series of operations for us. However, the individual should be paramount in making their own decisions. Collective security should be maintained to a reasonable extent. And government can provide some services, but for the most part, government should stay in its small lane.
So you are not one of the camp that is a single issue voter for why you're voting conservative.
I would say I'm not a single issue voter. I'd
Fair.
say generally I do believe that government should be limited to an extent.
Fair.
Obviously, the gun topic is definitely a large driver of that. However, there's other things that push me towards.
And just but to your point, and
right.
kind of to what I was saying earlier, is that I feel like the gun issue it has been a bit of a canary in the coal mine for me. Because to me, it's been like almost in a sense of the old meme that was being passed around probably like 10 years ago. But if they're going to come for those guns first, and then nothing's stopping them from coming on after everything else, right? So I see it as a really bad pattern and a slippery slope that has given me a lot of pause over the years.
And that's not theoretical, Vanya. We always like to talk about like, oh, well, this could happen. It could turn very easily into this. It could turn very easily into that. I think we have to start acknowledging and talking about the fact that it did. 2019, Bill C-79 comes into effect. May of 2020, I'm skipping a step. March of 2020, governments across the country tell business owners that they can't run their businesses, and they tell individuals that they can't go outside. They tell them where to go. They tell them how to get there. And they fall only one step short of locking people into their homes with padlocks like they did in China,
or welding their door shut.
Welding the door shut. And I mean, like, literally one step short, because they literally mandated and converted hotels into quarantines, forced quarantine camps. That's literally one step shy. It is the exact same mindset. It's just not to the same extent. You know what I mean? Then May of 2020, we have an order in council to pass broad sweeping legislation for guns that affects, and time has proven, only affects legal gun owners and doesn't have any effect on crime. And then we have a coerced medical procedures across the country in vaccines. Whether you agree in vaccines or not, it is not really up for debate that the government's coerced citizens into getting vaccines. Like that is a fact. Whether it was justified or not is what you can debate, and I believe that it wasn't. But that's the only part that's up for debate. They were coerced. In some cases, they were forced. People lost their jobs. Some of Canada's best, not some of Canada's best military members were pushed out of the jobs into early retirement solely because of that. They wouldn't be subjected to that type of coercion. And carry on. So we're not talking theoretically here.
This is all very black and white. And the worst part about it too, if kids read about this 30 years from now, they'll be like, "What the hell are you guys talking about?" They won't believe that. They'll be like the stories of, obviously not to the same extent and not the same scope and scale that I'm not comparing the two, but we're talking about like the internment camps in World War II here that we had with, the people of Japanese origin and all that kind of stuff. You're like, us as kids read about those stories in our school books, right? So kids 30, 40 years from now are going to read about those same things in school books, and they're not going to have the same level of perspective like we have. That's the point that I'm trying to make, is that they're not going to have that lived experience of it necessarily, because they wouldn't have been born yet, or they, were 1 or 2 years old when it happened or whatever. But it's just kind of crazy to think about the things that you're saying and you're describing in a very real, very matter of fact, point by point way. And somebody, if they were to listen to you talk about it, they'd be like, this guy's crazy. That never happened. No, but every single one of those things is exactly 100% true. I mean, we came from a trip back into Canada one time. This is on the tail end of COVID, not during the peak of it. On the tail end, we came back from Vegas, and we were on a flight that was somebody tested positive on. We had people coming to our doorstep of our house, checking on us to make sure that we were self-quarantining.
I had the same coming back from SHOT Show in 2021.
Same SHOT Show, yeah.
And it was literally by mistake, because I was not at the border. They told me to quarantine, and they clearly entered me in the computer as quarantinable. And then I provided them proof of previous infection, and I was within the window where I didn't have to quarantine, and they let me go across the border. But they didn't take the what they input out of the computer system. And 2 weeks later, I had somebody knocking on my door, and I just happened to be home.
Yeah.
It was pure happenstance that I was at home, because I'm usually not. It was literally just on like my 1 day off a week. And the guy's asking me to whether I'm still quarantining or not.
Yeah, and 100%. And literally, the person that at the border told us that if they didn't, we did not submit this home test, that they would, like, Carly's like, yeah, that she wrote it down. It's like they were gonna take her away from her children, like 2 babies. Take the mom away and put her in jail if she doesn't submit a home COVID test, even though we're quarantining at home. Like, what the hell? What does the matter, right? So it is a weird, interesting kind of point in time, but it's all an indicator of what they're willing to do in a crisis. And it doesn't have to be a real crisis. It can be a manufactured crisis. It could be anything, right? Yeah. But if they know that they're staring down the barrel of a rifle on the other side of that door, do you think they're doing the same thing?
100%. And that kind of brings me to my next point, because we're kind of still going through that. And a big part of it, I think, is that the average person is just buying it hook, line, and sinker. I mean, they literally shat their pants and then changed their T-shirt by voting Mark Carney in. And on all the promises of change, he's going to be different. He's going to be different. But this kind of brings us full circle now to what I wanted to talk about with the derailment in the first place. So far, it really hasn't been any different. There's very little action, like you said before. And you want to talk about a guy who talks out of both sides of his mouth. Depending on who he's giving an interview to, either we're moving away from the United States and more towards the European Union model, or things are going very well with Donald Trump. When he's talking on CNN, things are going very well, and we're very happy to have such a great trading partner that we're still looking forward to negotiating with.
Oh yeah, he's trying to play to Donald Trump's ego, of course, by talking him up and saying how great he is. And I'm sure he tells him, Mr. President, you're the best golfer that has ever lived, and you're on par with Kim Jong-un and all that stuff, and who gets a hole in one every time he shoots, and all that stuff, right? So
yeah. Man, that was hard to watch at the summit. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
That kind of ball shining. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but then he goes in and talks tough to domestic audience, right? And elbows up and sideways and all this kind of bullshit. But ultimately speaking, we're not going to see anything different. In fact, we're going to see a continuation of kind of the norm of the things that have been happening over the last 10 years. And us that voted for the other side knew that's exactly what was going to happen. Yeah. And then there were so many people, just because the leader of the party changed, they're like, oh, well, it's a whole new thing. And, it's Trudeau was the problem. It was Trudeau. It's not the party. Oh, yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah. I don't think
so. In that regard, I think that Polyev was too successful in tarring and feathering Trudeau, because the public literally, they bought that Trudeau was the problem, and he was not the only problem. There's a again, just kind of bringing this back.
The ministers are the same.
Exactly. And I think one thing that these guys have missed in this podcast. And now I don't know if this is I don't know the podcast, so I don't know if it's a progressive podcast or a conservative podcast, but I mean, if these guys if that sort of idea gets traction, and the progressive parties in Canada do end up leaving gun owners alone, cool, great. Hey, it's a win, and I'll take it. But I'll tell you, as somebody who is not a historical conservative voter, who has now voted conservatively since 2019, exclusively, and doesn't look at all like he's going to be going back to not voting conservative in the foreseeable future, I am no longer a single issue voter. I was more of a progressive, voting conservatively in 2019, in 2021, and in 2025. Sorry, I don't even know if I can say that in 25, but I was for sure in 2019 and in 2021. I don't know. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think that the Liberal Party has completely abandoned anything remotely resembling a middle ground. And Carney's not, he's supposed to be more fiscally responsible. And that's my two biggest gripes. It's property rights, not just gun rights. It's
Property
our rights, period,
Mm-hmm.
of which property rights and gun rights are one of those things. But I mean, it's still it's security of the person, the fact that they took them all away, it's Schedule 1, all of those things are a big, big issue for me. And it's economy.
Yeah.
And, everybody's so stupid, I think, thinking that Mark Carney is going to bring this economy back in line.
The question is how? How would he bring it back?
Well, it's not going to be by playing both sides, kissing ass, and doing nothing. It's not going to be by meeting 2% NATO targets just simply by folding the Coast Guard into the calculations. I was watching a CNN interview with him also today. And when he's talking to CNN, they're asking him about the new 5% NATO targets. And just like, well, how much money is that for your country? Like, what is 5% of your GDP? It's like, it's about $150 billion a year. And Christiane Amanpour is like, that's a massive amount of money that you're not giving to your own citizens. Because, she's very leftist, very progressive, and she doesn't want, she's, in her mind, Donald Trump pushed this, and so she doesn't agree with it. And Carney's response was basically to say, don't worry, there's all kinds of things that we can spend this 5% GDP NATO target on that isn't really just military. He's talking about critical and precious mineral mining. That technically can meet the requirements. He's talking about building railroads and other infrastructure and ports that technically can meet the 5% GDP requirements. So he's not even like, this is how we're going to fix the economy by putting all of this money spending.
I'll do you one better.
Yeah, go for it.
So when they announced that they were going to be participating in the NATO budget exercise and they were going to looking to meet the 5%, one of the ways that they were going to do that was by increasing pay for the Canadian Forces members by like 30%, let's call it. I can't remember what the exact number was.
Yeah.
Literally last week, I'm reading an article and the defense minister says, "Oh no, we're reevaluating that commitment." So inside of like 3 or 4 weeks, they went from one to increasing pay for the military members to maybe we're not going to do that now.
But Donald Trump is the one that always just says things and then flip-flops on it.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. I think Donald Trump is an absolute dick, and I don't think he's good for America, and I don't think he's good for Canada. But he's no Mark Carney.
No.
And I don't say that in the sense that Mark Carney is better.
No, and I have troubles because for me, there are very, very clear things that we need to do as a country that need to be done from an infrastructure perspective, from an immigration perspective. And I think I saw an announcement yesterday that they're finally changing some of the rules around the foreign students and their postgraduate visas and all that kind of stuff. And they're changing some of the classifications. So they reduced on the one ledger by like 50 qualifying programs, but they increased on the other side 100. They added like 190 programs. So I'm like, is this going to solve anything? I don't know. But we need to be building nationwide infrastructure projects. We need to be twinning Trans-Canada more. We need to be adding more lanes across the entire country. Because, I mean, if you go east of Manitoba through Ontario.
Oh, to Thunder Bay, yeah. It's desolate.
There's one bridge that you can get across the country with. There's
Choke
one bridge.
point.
That's it.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of us, when we're heading east, we drive through the States. I go through Detroit.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot easier, quicker. Just dip down below. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and plus then you don't have to go out all around the Great Lakes and all that stuff, right?
Well, and you don't have to worry about one gas station every 450 to 500 kilometers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, better not be
they're about 300.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's not much.
I spent a lot of time in that area. I know every gas station within 100 miles.
It's not much better, though, Mike. You go through the United States, and there's a gas station every 20 minutes.
Hey, have you stopped by the giant mosquito there? And what's it called? By is it Nipigon or not Nipigon?
No, it's not Nipigon. It's before Nipigon.
That's right. Yeah.
It's even further west than that. Yeah, it's
Curly's going
Manitoba
to text me,
National Bird.
correct me. Yeah, it's further west. I'm
Yeah,
just
I
trying
can't
to
remember
remember.
the-
It's by
yeah.
Dryden, I think, or something. Yeah. But yeah, it's but no, but that's the thing. It's like we need pipelines, we need cross-country pipelines, we need ports, we need LNG facilities. Like for Kitimat just shipped their first vessel, like foreign vessel from Japan came from Kitimat like this week. So it's by Kenora. Uppsala, thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like we need these things, and we don't need just one Kitimat. We need like 10.
Mm-hmm.
Like Churchill has
Yeah.
worked before. We can get it to work again. Maybe get some nuclear power going because Saskatchewan's got enough uranium to power half the world.
Yep.
I think
But
we've
we're
got
not
enough
touching
uranium
this.
to power more than half the world.
Yeah. And as soon as someone says Chernobyl, when you bring up nuclear power, they don't know what they're talking about. What about Chernobyl? Like, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm not talking with you anymore.
It's a great TV show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, exactly.
I give it
Not
3.6
great,
out of
not
10.
terrible.
Yeah.
But
also, I gotta jump in here because Chris, you've been ranting a little bit. I gotta get in with the rant. Cut you off. I listened
hey,
for you.
as
so
long as
long.
it's a derailed rant, I'm all for it. Give her.
It's
You
okay.
also
This is
didn't
actually
ask
gonna
me
be
about
on
my
your
opinion, but that's fine.
derailing.
I love it. I love it.
Essentially, the last 10 years of the Trudeau government has kind of poisoned the well.
It has.
It's kind of ruined it for investors and companies.
Yeah.
So obviously that's a challenge for obviously whoever won the election in the spring here is trying to turn that around.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to look at it as a positive light. Hopefully Carney tries to dig out of that trench that Trudeau made and hopefully make some progress just for him to realize that he sucks and it's the Liberal government's doing, and hopefully flip the government while hopefully looking on the positive side, this government makes some headway in digging out of the trench that Trudeau dug, but not saying that it can't get worse because that's also a very real possibility.
Yeah.
My number one fear is that he does a good job and
Mhm.
and it basically makes people forget how shitty the previous 10 years was and he turned something around. But I don't see that really happening right now. I mean, first and foremost, they haven't even passed a budget yet. They're afraid to. They haven't even tabled a budget.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they're
the economically responsible
statements.
Liberals.
Hmm?
They're the economically responsible Liberals.
Right.
Budgets? We don't need no stinking budgets.
The budgets will budget themselves. Right.
Yeah. The budgets will write themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's a bad thing. I genuinely hoped that, and I was conflicted about it, but I decided that for the greater good of this country, I hoped that Mark Carney would be better economically. But in this very short period of time that he's been prime minister, I'm coming to the same conclusion that you are. I don't think he's going to be. I think we're in for some more hard economic times in this country. And maybe that leads to a conservative government down the road. I'm not confident that it will. I think that he's going to do just enough, or it's possible that he'll do just enough to keep the East voting for him. And that's ultimately going to be bad for this country because it's going to continue stoking Western separatism, which is already at a boiling point. It's like, what happened to the days where when we had politicians that they were diametrically opposed to each other, but they still weren't trying to tear the country apart. Like, what the fuck are you people thinking?
Mm-hmm. Well, and they keep blaming Alberta and Saskatchewan, namely, but mostly Alberta. Alberta has gotten like a really bad rap in the last 20, 30 years of being a separatist enclave. It's really not. Like, really, I think people have just been taking a shit kicking for the last 50 years or more.
Yeah, and they're tired of it.
It's like, when's enough? Like, I always kind of, when people ask me about Alberta independence, I go, well, I'm not necessarily pro-independence, but I'm not really against it either. Because if you think about it, I always draw the contrast to battered wife syndrome, right? It's like, I go, at what point is a woman allowed to leave her husband or vice versa if they're in an abusive relationship? So tell me, and I go and we have a conversation. I'm like, tell me how this is not an abusive relationship. And you just lay out the details and go, who's being taken advantage of here and in what ways? And then tell me if it's an abusive, it's a bad relationship or not. And should Alberta consider leaving? I'm not saying they should necessarily, but should at least we think about it.
Yeah.
And I think the problem is that if we're even thinking about having a conversation, we're being shamed for it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And that's the second time in half a decade that's happened.
Yeah.
The first time was during COVID when people were asking questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 100%.
And that's bad overall. Like that, and that, I don't mean like a little like, oh, that's not good. I mean, that is catastrophically bad for the future of this country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I will
100%.
say there is a plus side of Alberta separating is I could be a pirate on the river Saskatchewan.
If you want to reach the co-op, boy, you're going to have to go through me.
Exactly.
Tax. Pay the tax.
Yeah,
It's going to not be a
exactly.
digital tax, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no shit. Unless it's crypto.
Right.
I'm generally not in favor of separatism. I think that it would cause a lot of hardship that a lot of people aren't thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I will tell you, if the talk of separatism gets Alberta and Saskatchewan a fraction of what the talk of separatism has got Montreal over the last 50 years,
Mm-hmm.
then I am 100% on board with it, with the
Same.
discussion.
I'm on the same mind too, because for me, it's like it's not necessarily about separating; it's about talking about separating and being
That's
like,
right.
"Listen, we're willing to do it. We're willing to talk about doing it. You guys better get on fucking board here and do something for us, and at least try to level the playing field a little."
It's about
bit.
leverage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Show some
And-
respect.
Yeah.
Show some goddamn respect. No, we've talked about in the past this thing offline and online about the Western provinces being perceived as resource colonies, right? So
Yeah.
that's been a thing, and I think that's a very real perception of the people that live here. Wealth is being extracted on a regular basis.
Since the inception of this country, there's political cartoons that go back to the 1800s
Right.
of the same thing we're going through right now.
Yeah. This isn't anything new, right?
Yeah.
But I think we're finally at a point where we go, well, why do we have to stay? And like you said, Chris, can we use this as a stick to get what we want, right?
Yeah.
And it's not about oil. It's not just about oil. It's about opening up all of our entire economy. I mean, Calgary and Edmonton have massive IT economies, right? People don't talk about that enough. We have a massive, infrastructure for educating youth in computer sciences and application programming and engineering is a massive one for Alberta. Just the sheer number of PNGs that we have in this freaking province is ridiculous. So, yeah, I mean, we have people who are under 35 leaving this country on a fairly consistent basis.
Yeah.
Because the opportunities are much better. I see it almost every day, a Reddit post on some of the subreddits that I follow, and a guy goes, I can get a job at Alberta or a Canadian company for, he goes, $150K a year, or I can get an American company for $300 US a year for the same job with the same level of experience. And like, how is this even a decision anymore? Like, what are you asking us for? You know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
the doctors were doing it forever, and now everyone other profession has finally caught up with it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
100%. So yeah, I was on a recent fishing trip with my brother who booked us on a very special, very bougie trip to go to BC for my dad's 70th. And a lot of the people that I talked to there are all very well off. It's a very expensive lodge that we stayed at. It was very expensive, very well-to-do kind of clientele. Everything was top notch. It was an amazing experience, but the way they kind of had to set it up was almost like a dining hall, and everybody kind of intermixed and chatted with each other. So it was a very social experience. And everybody there that was on this trip, whether they were Canadian or American, there were a lot of Americans too. The first question was like, how do you guys feel about the economy right now? Like, what's going on? How's this? How's that? Right? It was a very, very focused conversation on that. And the Americans were feeling a lot better about their economy than the Canadians were, I'll tell you that. And these are people who are industry leaders. These are people who are primarily business owners of very large companies. I mean, I own a company, but it's a very small company. Yeah, but these guys are talking about like multi-$100 million construction corporations. And like, we're talking like Ellis Dons and PCLs of the world. I'm not talking about Apex Optics here. But these guys were all very down on it. Right. It's, they're not very.
I do worry that a lot of Americans are thinking a little bit too short-sighted right now.
Mhm.
I genuinely think that what Trump is doing is going to last for approximately 4 years, coincidentally. And I think that, subsequent governments after him are liable to have to pick up the mess. And I think that's his plan.
Mm-hmm.
I think he wants to leave a mess. I think if it looks like Republicans are not going to get elected again in the next cycle, I think he wants to leave a mess for a Democratic Party.
So you can blame them on the mess and
get the Republicans in power
reelected again. Yeah, for sure.
That's not good for America, and it's not good for Canada.
No,
I said it already. Let's finish this up and then go back to Apex. But I just wanted to ask if you guys have heard about the major investor that started Shopify. He didn't start Shopify. He was his investment firm was the first backer of Shopify. Is now talking about backing a development company to produce a completely Canadian-made car.
I happened to switch on the news last night as that segment was airing on CBC. For some reason, I flipped to that channel, and
What do
I
you
happened
think
to
of
see
that?
that. I think it's interesting. And one of the things that I've always talked about is we have a massive auto industry in Canada. Why do we not have an all-Canadian car brand? It never made sense to me.
It's a good question, isn't it?
There's Australian car brands. Like if you go to Australia, there are Australian specific car brands.
Yeah.
I think as an idea, I think it's fine. I don't think there's a supply chain issue in Canada for parts.
No, for sure. Now, here's the thing, though. The comparison that's being done is to China, to Mexico, to India, that are all announcing that they're going to be making their own EVs. Do you think Canada should be making an EV?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I think what we need is a 1-ton diesel pickup truck.
Yes.
Without emissions. No emissions. I'm sorry. No emissions.
I would be on board with a Canadian company that's making. Do you guys know the difference between a hybrid electric vehicle and a PHEV?
What's a PHEV?
I forget what the P stands for. Plug-in hybrid electric.
Yeah.
So the PHEVs are the basically the new model. An HEV is a gasoline engine with an electric backup. Or an electric assist, really. A PHEV is an electric engine with a gasoline backup.
And that's what I've always talked about too. Is like this should be the way future. Yeah, the way.
So these like Toyota's making them. So like the Toyota RAV4 comes in a PHEV. It has I think a 60 or 70 kilometer electric range. But when you run out of battery range, it just kicks in the gas engine and you use the gas engine. And if you are just using the gas engine, it acts like a regular hybrid where the electric will still assist it. But your daily commute on a regular basis can be done entirely on electric. Mm-hmm. But now you don't have to worry about when you're going on the highway or whatever.
Or winter.
And when you're winter. And when you're driving, you're on gasoline, you're getting a very fuel efficient vehicle still.
Mm-hmm.
I am 100%
country.
What's that?
With heat in a cold country.
Exactly.
Yeah, heat's something a lot of people don't think of.
Oh yeah, because their 200 kilometer car turns into an 80 kilometer car because they're using an electric heater.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the one. Gas and diesel internal combustion engines produce approximately 33% of their power input in terms of chemical energy into waste heat.
Crazy.
So that is actually better utilized in some European countries, actually, than what we do. So
I genuinely believe that PHEVs are what match our current technology level.
Mm-hmm. It's not a leap forward. It's a lateral move, right?
Yeah. But I think, batteries, period, are still atrociously priced to replace. But a PHEV has less batteries to replace than the $40,000 for your Tesla.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know if this is the same tech that 1AB was talking about, but it's I did hear about some new battery tech coming out that I don't know if it's like sodium ion.
Yep, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that technology doesn't exist. We can't micronize it. Lithium air and sodium ion are the two front runners, but they're still not scalable technologies. And that's the problem is 10 years ago, I was listening to how a Swedish research company was only 3 years away from scaling and micronizing lithium air technology that would quadruple lithium battery output in vehicles overnight.
And
That was 10 years ago. And now we're hearing that we're 3 years away from scalable sodium battery technology.
I mean, at this point, I think we're probably going to be closer to like a miniature fusion reactor in your car.
Yeah. Well, I think we're actually closer to molten salt reactors than we are to sodium or open air lithium.
Yeah. I don't know, but circling back to the previous questions, the original questions, I would love to see a Canadian brand for sure, an all Canadian car company, all Canadian parts, components, everything, design, engineering, testing.
It's actually an elbows up idea I could get behind.
Yeah,
although I will not say elbows up. Like I would never that is the dumbest fucking analogy.
Yeah.
But
well, speaking of new technologies, what's in the pipeline at Apex Optics?
Oh, don't ask me that.
Hey, when's that lovely prism hitting the market?
I've got one that I'm going to bring to you.
That's what I was leaning towards.
A production one?
Yep. It's the same version as the full production one.
Oh my God, I'm going to bring my R9 then because it's going right on it.
Yep.
I'll bring the lever gun and I'll bring the R9.
Perfect. Yeah, no, we're definitely full on that one.
That's awesome.
They're still a little ways away, but we've been in testing on some cool new tech as well for sure. So I might give you guys a sneak peek on something else to give your feedback on. But overall, we've been in R&D mode quietly behind the scenes on a lot of different products, and we're hoping to announce probably 2 of them at SHOT Show this year. That's coming up.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah.
That's what I like about you guys. You really don't rest on your laurels. I mean, you've shown us all kinds of things that you're working on that even haven't come to fruition. But I think that's the way that you have to do it. You have to keep putting irons in the fire because, well, I mean, I believe in no small part responsible for some of the cool things that you guys are releasing to the market is the chances that you're taking and the investments you're putting into R&D on things.
Well, you kind of have to, right? Like you said, resting on your laurels. I mean, that'll only last so long, right? And then you kind of fade into oblivion. So I think we're not really interested in just to keep making what we've been making all along. I think there's a Gen 2 of pretty much everything, of every single product in the works, and to kind of the Doug's question around, or sorry, what was it? Another guy was asked about we're going to have a reticle without a tree. That's actually going to be in the Gen 2 version of our competition rifle scope coming out. One of the products that we hope to announce in January for 2026 is going to be, I'm not sure it's going to be a Generation 2 rival or a Generation 2 or a next iteration of a competition scope, but we're working on it right now, and there's going to be a whole slew of improvements over what we currently have right now. But one of the things is we're probably going to have 2 different options for reticles for customers to choose, whether they want a CLR Gen 2 or a slimmed down non-Christmas tree version of the CLR reticle. So
very cool. That's awesome. Yukikazi's calling me a pussy in the comments. That's how I know that the evening is just about done.
So the other big question is last year we some of us were very privileged to see the very talented Carly Cortalitza perform on stage. Will she be making a reappearance on stage?
I don't think this year. I think we've opted against the band this year. So just because we've moved venues for the Saturday evening thing to the outdoor in the campsite, so we thought that might be a bad look if we brought a full-on band with an outdoor stage and blast music at everybody. But that might be something we bring back the following year. So we'll see.
Okay, interesting. Good.
Derek's not going now.
That's it. I'm out. You know what? I'm sure you can convince her to sing for you anytime you want. So,
All right, good to know.
All right, Van, it's that time of night. Tell us anything you want to tell us about the Rocky Mountain Challenge or about Apex in general.
People have about 7 days to sign up if they want to come and shoot. So we're closing registration on July 4th. That is for a strategic reason only, which is I would leave it on until probably the day of the match. You can come and just give me money and you can go shoot the match. But,
Cash only.
yeah, cash only. But Carly and Madeline would probably get mad because we wouldn't have enough food to feed everybody. So really, because of the kind of the catering deadlines that we have for the smoked brisket that we have going, as well as the lunches, we probably need to close registration at the end of the day on July 4th. So yeah, if people want to sign up, you have a week to do it, and we've got some spots available, and we'd love to have you out there. It's going to be a blast. Honestly, it's going to be a really fun match. If nobody's ever shot a match before, this is going to be a great match to shoot as well. I'm getting a list of all the first-time shooters or people who are not as experienced who'd like to be paired up with some of the more experienced guys in our squad. We're getting a list of those guys who are willing to kind of coach along as well. And coaching is allowed for brand new shooters on the clock too. So if you're nervous about trying it out for the first time, just come on out. The best way to shoot, to get to see if you actually like it, is to try it out. YouTube doesn't do it justice. It's a lot more fun than it looks online too. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I'm not even shooting it, and I'm really looking forward to being there.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be fun.
I've been excited since last year.
Good to hear.
Like wanting up this.
Yeah.
Well, I just can't wait to see Mike riding around on his yellow quad again. That's all.
I might even wear shorts this year just for a show for everybody.
How are the ticks out there? That's a great question.
The grass is pretty short.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, good news. Yeah.
Yeah, like today it was like this far off the ground. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
They must have some of those field goats.
Field goats, cattle.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, cattle, elk.
Yeah, lots of elk in that area. I mean, there's herds of like I think 100, 150 elk herd sizes out there. So
crazy.
They'll do a pretty good job.
Yeah, for sure.
Before we wrap it up, Vanya, who and what are you thankful for?
Ooh, that's a great question. Number one, I am thankful for my family, my girls. That's the number one thing. That's why I get up in the morning and do what I do. And apart from Chris, of course, but but no, honestly, every morning they come into my room and they give me a big giant hug first thing in the morning, and that's I don't drink coffee, so I don't need coffee after that.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
That is such a sweet family answer.
It's the truth.
I'm not even saying that facetiously. You're a good man, Vanya. You're better than all of us.
I don't know about that.
Well,
Mike's probably a little bit better.
I'll leave it at that. Hey, where do we find Apex? Plug all the things and include CRPS in that. You know what I mean.
Yeah, of course. So apexoptic.co for our website. If you want to check out any of our products, they're all there. Everything's in stock. We're fully stocked up on Rivals, Rival X's, 15 Pro binos, 12 Pro binos, our entire binocular lineup from 8X all the way to 15s, with and without reticle are all available. Adams, Fusions, everything's in stock. We are waiting on our full set of accessories to still show up. There's been stuck in customs for like 3 or 4 weeks now. So no word on when that's getting released. That's really not up to us at this point. But we have things coming that we'll be sharing probably after the match on some stuff there with the rings and the RMR risers and offset mounts and stuff like that. But if you go to apexoptics.co and then click on the 2025 match link at the top or one of the banners on the main site, it'll take you right to the match page, and it's got all the info on there. The logistics of where to stay, what to see, what to sightsee. We have people coming in from all over the world for this match this year. So we have guys coming from France, from Britain, from all over the U.S., all over Canada. It's people are coming from Ontario and BC and Saskatchewan and all over the place. So it's going to be a
world-class event.
World-class event, 100%. It's a PRS Pro Series Qualifier this year as well, which means that we have a lot of top shooters coming up for this match. because they want to need to get one qualifier match in towards their PRS finale qualification standard. So that's important. It's not going to be a qualifier event every year, I don't think, but I think it will rotate around between the 4 or 5 Pro Series matches in Canada. But for this year, we were selected to be the qualifier match, so we kind of have to raise our game across the board a little bit too. It's going to be super fun. We got a whole bunch of new targets, all new steel this year as well. So we now own all of our steel this year, which is good. So we don't have to buy any more, hopefully.
That's cool.
So Prairie Precision Steel out of Saskatchewan and Colton, those guys, huge shout out to them. They hooked us up with a huge amount of steel. And I got a couple of interesting different steel targets out of JC Steel out of Washington State as well. So Jake Vibert's old company, and Jake's coming up for the match again this year as well. But we got a couple of little cool spring-loaded popper targets that are on T-posts that are going in there as well. And then, it's going to be a fun match. Just you can sign up right through the link on the Apex Optics website. It'll take you to Impact Scoring for registration, or you can go straight to impactscoring.net or through the app if you have an account on there. And it takes like 30 seconds to sign up, and it'll be a great time.
Sweet.
Awesome.
And don't forget to watch for our coverage of the Apex Rocky Mountain Challenge on YouTube and Facebook, I'm guessing.
More details to come soon.
Yeah, YouTube, Facebook, and Insta if we can swing it, but we'll have to see if we can do that. Mm-hmm. It depends on how well we're able to integrate multi-platform.
There has been some serious effort. I really hope people at least appreciate how much time we've put into this.
Yeah, it's been a bit of time and a bit of money.
Yeah, I can imagine. This equipment isn't cheap, right? To be able to live broadcast stuff.
No, sir. Yeah. Well, and this proof of concept is like we're going as cheap as possible, and it's several thousand of just to test it out. So it's
just to see if it works.
Yeah. But I very strongly believe that it's going to be worth it.
Well, I can't wait to see the result too. It'll be awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see you there and to see all the participants and hopefully some show viewers. Stop by, say hi.
Stop by, say hi. That rhymes.
Yeah.
We will.
All right, folks, it's that time of night. Please check out the show, facebook.com/BS podcast. Leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. Also, if you like the content, please leave a like on the page and share, including our YouTube page. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/@BS_podcast. You can email the show, info@bspodcast.ca. You can find our website at bspodcast.ca, www.bspodcast.ca. As usual, a massive thank you to all of our sponsors and all of our listeners. Without you guys, we wouldn't have a show in the first place. We're talking about Shane, Steve, Miles, Carey, and Cappy, Duncan and Rob, Phil, Doug, Niza, Vanya, Carly, Oscar, and JR. Thank you all an immeasurable amount. Do we have a show next week, folks, or are we at matches next week?
I think we're peak match season right now.
We're peak match season. Yeah, we'll do our best to have something for you guys next Friday, but no guest. It might just be a couple of us sitting around a campfire after a match. But
also, can I do a quick thing? I forgot
to
thank Doug and Niza from Mark Scopes for also sponsoring our match, so my apologies for that.
Are they sponsoring? Oh, good for them. That's awesome.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, very cool. That's awesome.
Markscopes.ca.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then we will see everybody possibly next week, if not the week after that.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
See y'all when you get here.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Vanya, for coming on.
Anytime, guys. Thank you.
Yep.
This right here has the ability with a 30 caliber clip to disperse with 30 bullets within half a second.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber.
You're listening to your weekly dose of BS, ballistically speaking. The Ballistically Speaking Podcast.